Switch Station 32. Today we're here for a special video. Today we're going to do an unboxing of a Nintendo 64. It's a two-part video because we're going to do this too. A video, S video to HDMI. I got this off Amazon. It was $41 Canadian. And this is advertised to work with the Nintendo 64. So we're going to do a test with this. So when I was getting my Nintendo 64, I couldn't find my controller or my component cables. So I was looking around online to, and mine was beat up a lot. It got used a lot. Like, I don't even know how good the 64 works anymore. I haven't used it for a while. But when I was looking online, one of the local buyers had this boxed. I was talking to him, and he told me, I asked him some questions about it. What he told me that sold it to me was, he said that he bought this from a collector, and the collector had other Nintendo 64s in his collection that he used, and he said that he basically bought this and never ever played it. So if he can take his word for it, this Nintendo 64 has only been used a few times. And I got a pretty good deal on it. It was $130 Canadian. If I bought the controller, the wires, it would have cost me about $70 or so in Canada. So it was only an extra $60, and I got a brand new, basically, Nintendo 64, and new controller, new wires and everything. I figure I'll get this, and I'll have a new Nintendo 64, and we'll test it out with this. So a little backstory of Nintendo 64 for me. Growing up, we never had a lot of money, but my parents made us feel like we had a lot of money at Christmas time and stuff. Like, we never got games and stuff all year. We got them for a birthday, for Christmas, for Easter, stuff like that. I really wanted this the year it came out, 1996. I still remember it like it was yesterday. It was my favorite Christmas of all time. I remember looking at it in the Sears catalog. That's where I first seen it. That's where I asked my mom to buy it from me, my old man. And I remember just looking at the Sears catalog every day after work, just reading it over and over and over about it, and Mario 64, and how excited I was. That's all I wanted, was this thing. And when I opened it up at Christmas time, I got this. And it was my favorite gift I ever had. It was my favorite Christmas. I still remember it like it was yesterday. So, that being said, let's get into this. So, the only damage the box has that I noticed was right here. A little bit right here. A little bit on the edges, nothing serious. Here's the back of the box. The games. Ocarina of Time up there, probably my favorite Zelda game. Right till Breath of the Wild. I'd say Breath of the Wild is probably my favorite, but Ocarina of Time have to be right up there. Now, out of these games on the back, what games did I have as a kid? I had Ocarina of Time, WCW vs. Revenge, which I would say is probably one of the greatest wrestling games ever made. I don't think they get enough credit. The WCW wrestling games on the Nintendo 64. And I was a big wrestling fan growing up. Banjo-Kazooie, I never had that, but I used to rent it. 1080 snowboarding, I had that, I loved it. A couple of my friends had it too, and we always used to compete to see who was the best, who could do the best tricks. GoldenEye, I had that. It was, my friend also had it. One of my best friends, we used to go over to each other's house and play GoldenEye non-stop. Like, GoldenEye was amazing back then. You gotta realize back then this was like one of the first-person shooters ever. And it was 4-player, you play on the screen. It was amazing. Star Wars Episode 1 Racer, I had that. Donkey Kong 64, had that. Super Smash Brothers, never had Super Smash Brothers growing up. And Super Mario 64, probably my favorite Mario game of all time. I'll get into that a little bit later. One more shot of the back, the games. There's the side. You got your different color controllers there, rumble pack, memory card, and your standard controller. This is how I played it back in the day. I had the RF switch, because my TV never even had components, so I wasn't even playing up to the regular standards. I was playing it on RF. And that did give me some troubles as a kid. I remember, and I had to get my old man in there and help me hook that up a bunch of times, because for whatever reason it would have no sound, and you have to hook it up over and over to get sound. Let's get into this. And it comes with all the packaging, the original papers, still in the bag. Here's your big brick power box everybody talks about for the Nintendo 64. Nintendo logo on there. Your cables for all you young kids. This right here is why it's hard to upscale Nintendo 64, because it didn't have HDMI. And this is what you got to scale it through, where this comes in. You can plug them in there. And it also has S-video for people that want to do S-video for Nintendo 64. The Nintendo 64, the S-video is supposed to be better than the component. Nintendo 64. As you can tell, no scratches on this at all. Like, this thing is in mint condition. I'm glad I went with the road of getting a new one after I bought it. And the Nintendo 64 was the only system at the time that had 4 ports for your controller, so you play 4-player. PlayStation and Saturn all had ones that you could buy separate, but you had to buy it separate to have the 4 players. This is your controller. When you pull it in your hand as an adult, you can tell how it feels out kind of small. This is how you can tell if you got a good controller. The joystick, this wears out on Nintendo 64. Because there's a lot of games like Mario Party, and you gotta go like this. But I don't know if you can hear it or see it in the camera, but you see how that snaps back? You hear that? It just snaps right back into place automatically. That's how you know you got a good working controller. That's how I knew when I got this that that system has been barely used, because the controller has been barely used. The controller is just like brand new. And you can tell on any Nintendo 64 controller just by going like that. If it goes like that, you can hear that and it snaps right back. That means you got a good working controller. Now with Nintendo 64, some people, younger people might not know, but these yellow buttons here are actually what your dual analog sticks are. All new controllers are based from this controller. It might look a little funky now, but at the time there wasn't dual analog sticks. So what you did was, this is your move stick, and this 4 buttons moved your camera, and that's how you moved your camera before there was a second stick. So Nintendo pretty much invented the way games moved around, how you can move your own camera with these buttons here. That's where all that came from. And then you have your D-pad, so you can hold it like this, or you can hold it like this, or some people even hold it like this. It's not for me. I like holding it like this. And you get your shoulder buttons, and there's a trigger button back there. The memory card for these old systems didn't actually go in the system. Your memory card, bottom of your controller. That's how your memory card works. And there's actually more than that you can buy with this. You can get Rumble Pack to put in here. And another thing is, if you don't get one of these systems, you have the expansion pack. Now this gives it from 4 megabytes of RAM to 8 megabytes of RAM with this. So the original one you get 4, and with this you get 8. So there's certain games that you can't play on the Nintendo 64 without the expansion pack. This being one of them, Donkey Kong 64. Now when I was a kid, I'm pretty sure I got it for the following Christmas. I got my expansion pack with this game. So I didn't have to buy this separate. It actually came with this game. I didn't have to buy it at all because my parents got it for me for Christmas. So if you're looking into getting into retro games, getting into a Nintendo 64, you want to try to find one with one of these, or try to find one of these, because in Canada, in your retro stores or your local pawn shops, wherever you don't try to get this, this is selling for about 40 bucks. So you're looking at about $40 extra if you're gonna have to, if you want a Nintendo 64 or do you want to get the expansion pack. In Canada, the United States, I don't know what it is. probably around 30 bucks or so. And let's get into this. I've been waiting to do this. N64 free player's guide. What it is you can subscribe Nintendo Power. And it says for 12 issues of Nintendo Power, and it's $27.95 Canadian, $19.95 US. So that's 1 year's worth of them. So that's a pretty cool little piece of history right there. I mean, the newer ones, people don't look at these manuals at all, but the old ones, you want to look at. It's a number to call for your services and warranty if anything goes wrong. Customer information booklet. How to connect your Nintendo 64 to your TV. And there you go. I'll put the little history in there. There's, most people hooked it up. But you could also hook it up to a VCR and then run it to your TV. For those of you who know what a VCR is, that's pre-DVD player. That's how I hooked it up. The RF switch. Now the other side is your Y switch. I still remember this poster like it was yesterday. The poster that you got with your Nintendo 64. Traveling case. Some more cool stuff on the front. Complete plastic case to keep your Nintendo 64 safe. And this is where you fill it out. I did get this from my local buyer because this is a game I had when I was a kid. I really wanted this and I could never ever find this game, and he had it for 10 bucks, which is a pretty good deal on it. And I couldn't help myself. I had to pick this one up from him. Pilot Wings. This was a launch title alongside Mario 64 to show off the power of the Nintendo 64. Good racing game, Cruising USA. And my favorite game on Nintendo 64, the game I don't know, I wish you could tell how many hours you played a game for on Nintendo 64, because I guarantee I put about at least 1,000 hours in this game. I love this game so much. You had to realize back then when these 3D games came out, there was nothing like that. When you first saw Super Mario 3D in 3D, it was amazing. It blew your mind. Like when you upgrade to a new system now, yeah, it's a little bit of an upgrade, but it's nothing compared to going from Super Nintendo to the Nintendo 64. I don't think there'll ever be an upgrade like that ever again for you. There's that much of a leap from the Super Nintendo to the Nintendo 64. I still remember it like it was yesterday. I was still excited from getting it. Couldn't wait for my old man to hook this up, and when he hooked it up and I played this for the first time, it was the greatest Christmas ever. It was the most memorable Christmas I ever had. I still remember the tree we had and everything. And in case you're wondering, we had a pine tree that year for Christmas. It was a pretty good Christmas. Now let's talk a little bit about the neoteck. I was looking on Amazon for stuff that would scale Nintendo 64. Now this is actually advertised for the Nintendo 64, so I'm hoping it really works good. We'll see. I did read in the comments one person didn't like the S video, but I really wasn't looking for the S video. I was looking for the component. And right here is where you switch from S video to AV, which would be component. This is where your S video is. It does have headphone jack. This is where your power goes in, and it goes from 720 to 1080p. And USB power. We'll give this thing a try. Now I'm hoping I get good video out of these. I'm going to try these games up. I don't have a capture card hooked up yet. I am going to get one so I can make these videos a lot better. Let's get into trying out the games and see how this works. One thing I didn't know is right on the back, big giant letters, made in China. This does not feel cheap. This is a metal box. It feels nice, rugged. This says it's a HDMI converter, but if you read the description of what it will do, it does say in the description that it will upscale it too. So I don't know about that, but we'll find out.
Hey Mario, please come to the castle.
As you can see, it looks good, vibrant, colors are good. The colors actually look really good. I was really impressed with the colors. What you're seeing right now is 1080p. I had it on 720. I thought 720 would look better, but I think it looks better with 1080p, to be honest. And again, the sounds and stuff are right on. There's nothing wrong at all with the sounds. I think it looks pretty good. And when you read the signs, the letters are all nice and crisp for a Nintendo 64 game. And this is component, so it's not the best, but it's pretty good for component. I'm pretty happy with it. Bringing back a lot of memories when I played this for the first time in a couple of years. And I don't think you can have Donkey Kong 64 without the donkey rap, so I added that in there. I thought you guys would like that. And again, the sounds are perfect. There's nothing at all wrong with the audio with this. And the lightning looks good. The only thing with Donkey Kong, I thought, and it was the only game I tested that was like this, it was a little bit dark. But Donkey Kong's a dark game anyway. Even back in the day, it was a dark game. But you can turn up the brightness with your TV. Any TV would fix this. Just turn the brightness up a little bit. I'm not sure if this is the neoteck or if this is just the game. Pilot Wing 64, not my favorite game. But this is a game that really showed what the Nintendo 64 could do. This was a launch game. I got this for Christmas with Mario 64 from my parents that year. And this is one of my friend's favorite games. I wasn't a big fan of this game. I'm not that good at it, but a lot of people really like this game. And like I said, this was to show how powerful the Nintendo 64 was when it first came out. Army Men, Sarge's Heroes. My little guy loves this game. He's been wanting to play it ever since we got the Nintendo 64 hooked up again. This is all he wants to play. He loves this game. I love this game too as a kid, so it's good to see that. And again, the sounds and everything in this game look good. The visuals are good. I mean, you got to remember this is a Nintendo 64 game, but it still looks good. And then Cruis'n USA. You got one of the best racing games on the Nintendo 64. I mean, Mario Kart was obviously the best, but as far as like a real racing game with real cars, I think this was the best racing game on it. It was my favorite anyway. And as you can see, this game looks beautiful. There's nothing wrong at all with this game. This game, I think, was top notch. There's no issues at all with this. I think it looks beautiful on the neoteck. Sounds are good, the colors are good, the visuals are good, it's all nice and crisp. You get your little dancing girl. Now, would I recommend the neoteck A video to S video? Absolutely. I was really impressed with it. I was impressed that now, you got to realize I didn't use the S video. I know a lot of people like the S video for Nintendo 64, but I used the component. That's what I wanted it for. And for a component, I thought it worked really good. I'm really impressed with it. I'm actually going to buy another one of these because I want another one for the house. And to hook up a couple more game systems with this. I did try it on 720 and 1080p. What you guys saw was 1080, and I thought it looked pretty good. When you first hook this up, it's on widescreen by default, and it looks good in widescreen too, but I set my TV back to 4:3. I thought it looked better in 4:3. It wasn't stretched out as much. Most TVs you can switch to 4:3, even if they're stuck on widescreen, and that really helps with an older system. Another thing is, that I mentioned earlier, is I run this through an HDMI switch. Look good running through the HDMI port too. So as far as the neoteck, I definitely recommend it. If you're looking for something just for composite, I definitely recommend this. It makes composite look really good on the new TVs. And I would say it does upscale it a little bit too, because it does look a little bit sharper. So I'm pretty impressed with this. I'd recommend this for sure. As for my Nintendo 64 that I got, I was really happy with that. It played great. I had no issues. It played every game I tried in it. So I was really impressed with the Nintendo 64. I'm really glad I went and bought this one here instead of trying to put my old one back together. And the nostalgia of playing a new Nintendo 64 was pretty cool, I must say. I really enjoyed myself with that. The kids are playing it. They're really liking it. The fiance's really liking it. So that'll be it for this video. If you can leave a like and a subscribe, that really helps the channel grow. And my favorite of all is if you leave a comment. If you guys can tell me if you guys had a Nintendo 64, if what your guys' thoughts were, or if you want to leave a comment about your favorite Christmas, your favorite video game memories, one that sticks out, I'd really like to hear that. For me, it was Christmas 1996. It will always be my favorite Christmas as a kid. My favorite Christmas now is with my kids and creating these memories for them. That'll be Switch Station 32. I hope you guys liked the video. It's a little bit longer, so I hope you guys really enjoy it. And Switch Station 32 here for another unboxing and a review.